Hey everybody, it's Professor Diffley. This is History 103, Module 2, Chapter 1, Lecture Video 5. So, talking about hunter-gatherers is where we're starting and where I left off last time. So, what we're going to talk about their way of life and their key characteristics. Important, this is going to be the basis of the Module 2 blog assignment. So, and that's what will often happen is usually blogs will deal with a certain part of the something that appeared in the module, and then I'll play off that and ask you to, often again, history, like I said, is about helping us understand the present, so making a comparison, talking about somebody connecting it to our lives, making it relevant, that sort of thing. What the question is about this week is this module is, tell me about the hunter-gatherers, their way of life, key characteristics, tell me in detail, and then compare and contrast, human life today, modern life, and then tell me which way, who had it better, which way would you rather be, which way would you rather live? I know already which way I'd like to live. I like modern comforts like heat and shelter and not having to worry about a lion eating me or something like that, but these are types of things that you'll talk about there. So key characteristics. So, let's get this one first, and this part of it, define a hunter-gatherer. Hunter-gatherer, pretty simple. Human beings who roam and hunt and gather food in the wild. That's why they're hunter-gatherers, right? Where they get their food, they hunt for it, and they gather it in the wild. Don't live in permanent settled communities, right? They're nomadic or semi-nomadic. What does that mean? Nomadic is they move all the time, right? They always move to wherever the food and water is. Semi-nomadic is usually where a group travels in a certain circuit or a certain area. Native Americans, especially in this area, in the Northeast, were very much like that. They would move according to the seasons, right? They could be up, they could move towards Vermont, places like that, in certain times of the year, down towards Agawam into Connecticut, Springfield, at times later in the year, depending on what the food, what was growing, that sort of thing. So that's nomadic. They move where the food is, that sort of thing. So key characteristics. So very important. When I show you something like this in the lecture slide and I say key characteristics, it's bold right there, at the bullet point, and then I list all these things, the sub-bullets under it. Well, you need to include all of that, excuse me, in the answer, right? If you just tell me about group size and diet and lifestyle, well, you're not going to get much credit because you didn't tell me everything there, right? So that's what you need to do. This is also, let me show you about the notes as well. Like I said, for a lot of things, I will give you notes to the slides. So some here, like go back to the Neanderthals, it's very short, right? I don't give you a ton of it there. But for other areas, especially as we move on, there might be more in the notes section, right? So here, this is a lot of what I'm about to say is also written down here because it's not, it's touched on in the book. It's not fully there. Often that's what you find in the notes is things I want to add in, elaborate on that. I put some bullet points in the slide and here's the more information. So very, very important. Read the note sections all the time. Very important. Read the note sections. Again, how do you get to that here? Say if you're in PowerPoint, you go up to here to view and you go to notes page, and what it does is it actually gives you, that's one way you can print this off. Don't print these if the lecture slides. I often include, they could be very long. They include a lot of pictures. You don't have to print them. You always have them digitally. But here's, if you want to read through it, it tells you everything on one page, right? The slide and then the notes down here. If you're a normal one, what you do is you see down here, you have notes. If you click notes, this is sometimes the default view. If you click notes, you can just see the slide here. You click notes, it shows you where the notes begin, and then you could change the size of it there to read it. The same thing pretty much goes in Google Slides as well. So let me go back to the slideshow here and get going on this. So so the hunter-gatherers, key characteristic, a group size. Anywhere 15, 25 people is what they argue. Why? Well, we've seen hunter-gatherer groups, in the modern world back to the 15th century and more current. That's often the size of these groups. We could also tell this by, right, demography of the size of their encampments, what they left behind, the tools, the amount of waste, right, of food waste. Just they call them middens in archaeology. Really, it is a garbage dump, right? You could tell how many humans most likely created that. So that's about their group size. They're usually probably, a clan. A clan is a clan is a bunch of interrelated families, right? So think of that. This would be, not just the people that have the same last name. This would be your extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, that sort of thing. That would be a clan, as a grouping of those extended families. So that's probably how they group themselves. Diet and lifestyle. Well, they were constantly moving, right? So they're constantly moving. They were probably a lot healthier than we are today. And we know, actually, when we became farmers and we settled down, humans, we gained some advantages, but we also became, there's some disadvantages to it. We were more sedentary. We didn't move. We started to develop other physical ailments, started domesticating animals, lived closer to them. Those are things we'll talk about later. And we got sicker from, the diseases they passed on. So they're probably healthier. They also had a much more varied diet, right? So they ate whatever they could find. So they would eat nuts, berries, fish, game, hunted animals. They had a very varied diet. And we know today that, if you eat the same thing over and over, it's not that good for you because you're not getting the full range of nutrients, vitamins, everything else that you can get. So they were probably healthier. They had to move further. They lived off the land, that sort of thing. So that is their lifestyle. Again, nomadic or semi-nomadic, depending on where they were. But either way, they moved around. Group dynamics and power relationships. So this is a social organization. One thing is the group dynamics and power relations. From everything we could tell, they didn't have the hierarchy we have today. Everybody was these were more or less egalitarian. What do we mean by egalitarian? Everybody was roughly equal. Now, did some people have more prestige, were more important to the group? Of course, right? Well, what do you think could make you more important to a group like this, a hunter-gatherer group? Things like who brings in the most food, right? Who's the best a protector? Those who reach older age are usually valued more. Why? Because they have wisdom, they've seen more, that sort of thing. So you could have differences in there, but when it came time to decision making, they were egalitarian. No one was a true king or a queen or an elected leader. They made group decisions. And we see that in many hunter-gatherer groups today. You don't start to get real stratification where you have a ruling class and things until after humans settle down. That's something we'll talk about in module 3. But that's their group dynamics. So women and men too were part of this. Men were mostly hunters. Women were mostly the gatherers, and that's what we could tell. And it makes some sense if you look at this way. Why didn't as many women hunt there? Well, they also had to care for their children. I mean, if any of you are hunters or you know anything about hunting, you have to be quiet, right? You have to stalk your prey, that sort of thing. Imagine now trying to hunt with an infant or a toddler with you, right? It's not going to work very well. They're very loud. So they have to stay closer to camp because they have to care for the children, that sort of thing. So they most likely gathered. Men most likely hunted. Now, of course, there's always going to be exceptions to these rules, but that's what it seems like. And unlike most of the animal kingdom, men are physically bigger usually than women. But that's not always been the case. Some ancient studies of ancient bones show that women were a little bit more similar to men in bone structure and muscle mass and things like that. But humans evolved that men were usually the bigger of the species, where in the animal kingdom, actually the reverse is usually the true, where women are bigger. And that trade, they did trade with each other, but it wasn't like today or even later. We're going to see in the first civilization where there was actual planned out constant trade between different settlements. They had trade routes, things like that. That's not how this worked. They usually traded with groups that they encountered, right? So it was when they came in contact with other groups, would they trade? What are they trading? Well, this is how people always trade. What they have an abundance of, they trade. And what do they trade it for? What they need. So it could be food, things like that, animal skins. But one other thing they seem to find is all over the world is just like people today, the ancient hunter-gatherer humans also liked shiny things. They would trade for ornamental pieces, right? How do we know this? Like take the America, North America, the stone turquoise, which is mostly found in the south, is really only found in the southwestern United States. They have found evidence of it in before Columbus got to the Americas and European colonization began and settlement began. They found it up in the Northeast and places like that. Well, how it didn't get here? Well, it was probably traded from one group to another, right? So you will find stones like that, practical stones, flint, which you use to make fire, make tools out of, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the trade they had. Technology and innovation. Again, they're Stone Age, which means their tools are made of stone, right? That's what makes them Stone Age. You go into the Iron Age or the Bronze Age when they start to make tools out of those elements and those metals. And so that was really most of their technology was stone. But again, it could be, they could make also use bone. That's how they can make needles. They could use plant fibers. They could use even some of the way, how would they make thread back then? They would use some of the tendons, ligaments of animals, things like that. So they had that kind of technology. Their greatest innovation was learning how to master fire, right? Learning how to start and master fire. Fire, no one invented fire. It's a naturally occurring thing, right? Lightning strikes, it creates fire. What the difference is being able to create it at will, right? The way they did it back then, usually flint stones, things like that, where they could create it. Or if anybody was in the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, you could make it through friction, right? Different wood on wood can create friction and create a spark. Why was fire so important? It allowed them to shape their environment, right? They could clear land. It gave protection, heat. You could cook food for the first time, and cooking food makes it easier to digest, unlocks nutrients in certain certain foods, that sort of thing. So the use of fire was a major innovation. Now the other question is, what was their culture like? Did they have a religion? Did they believe in an afterlife? Well, things like that. Chances are, yeah, probably they did. That's what we think. You can see they had Venus figurines. You'll find these all across Eurasia. And they're in I think the next slide, or where is it? Here's a Venus of Willendorf. So this one was found in Germany. They find these that are remarkably similar all across Europe. What this is believed is to be a fertility goddess, right? Notice that there's no face, so it could be it looks like a pregnant woman is what this is supposed to be. But no face, so it could be anybody. And they find these amongst women's graves, things like that. Go back to this. So maybe they believed in a goddess, or maybe it's a charm, that sort of thing. We have cave art. You can look at this, the video there, famous cave art at Lascaux in France, where they paint animals. They paint, maybe the animals they hunted, other things like that. But also burial practices. We believe they probably did have a belief in the afterlife. Why? You find graves buried with items, with weapons, with food, with tools, with vessels to hold water. Question is, why would you bury someone with those things? Is they're dead. They can't use them. Unless, and this is where it often is that they might need them in the afterlife, right? They might, Vikings were buried with their weapons because the belief was they would need them in the afterlife. Some cultures buried their dead with coins because they'd have to pay the ferryman, right? They would need it in the afterlife. Things like that. Others, bodies were prepared. They were painted red often. Why? Well, there's some ritual to it. What is it? It's unclear. But think about burial rites we have and burial practices, right? They have a meaning to them. That we believe that for something, it's a cultural belief, maybe it's a religious belief, but yeah, everywhere you go, you will find things like that in their practices. So they most likely did have some sort of religious or at least belief in the afterlife, spirituality. Let's put it that way. Again, you have the drawings. What do they mean? They could be decoration. But that's been mostly discounted because they choose what they draw, right? It's often animals, so maybe it's showing what to hunt, maybe chronicling things, showed a way for them to separate themselves from nature. Maybe they're shot ritualistic. We know symbols have meaning, and they do to pretty much all cultures. So those are some of the things that they did. Their cultural forms. Their sculptures, like I show. And then, we know they probably had music because we found, early what would be flutes or drums and things like that. And so they probably, they did have some culture. They probably had some religion, that sort of thing. Again, that's the Venus of Willendorf. Here is some of the paintings from Lascaux showing horses, showing other animals that they hunted. What's the meaning of them? Again, it's unclear. Just some more. This would be like a bison and that. They did have language as well, and that is where we'll pick up in the next video.